Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So, it's certainly not going to take the whole time, won't take very long at all, but I did it. I went and got us a little pronunciation guide, at least for the top 200 prospects. It's not everybody, because most of these names are pretty straightforward, or you could figure it out, or whatever. Alfred Collins, I don't think we need to really delve into TJ Sanders and, Riley Mills, CJ West, etc. But out of the 200, I got 30 that could use a little bit of help, and obviously most of them I've been saying wrong, including some very prominent players that I had to double, triple check, because there's no way I've been saying it wrong the whole time. Only real notes to touch on today is Julio Jones has announced his retirement after 13 seasons. Certainly would never fault anybody for sticking it out as long as you can and trying to continue in your career to the best of your ability for, as long as you can work, you work. It does suck a little bit to be like, ho-hum, like, oh yeah, Julio Jones, who cares, nobody cares. This dude was elite for a long time. But that was a long time ago, and yeah, I don't... It's not that interesting in news in 2025, I guess. But why don't we go ahead and get through this? By the way, I cannot 100% guarantee that these are correct. We do this all the time where we go through and say, turns out this is how you pronounce their name, and then you find somebody else and they say it a different way, and then you hear from the people in the press and they're like, actually, it's pronounced this way, or like my mom calls it, like, you know what I mean? Especially with the goofy names. For some reason, there's 19 different ways to say it, and I don't know, but at least, hopefully, we can be a little bit more correct than previously when I was just making stuff up off the top of my head. So the first one actually just had their pro day. Maybe we'll talk about it. I don't know. But Shedeur Sanders. It's one of those, I kind of know how to say it, but there's like an emphasis thing, and it's like, where do you kind of put the little twang on it, you know what I mean? Is it straightforward? Is it this? Is it that? Is it Shedeur, whatever? Shedeur Sanders. Wide receiver out of Arizona. Again, can just call him T-Mac. Easiest way to go about it. And this is also one that I think a lot of these did come from like the team websites, so you would kind of assume that they are correct, but even then, you never really know. I have seen some kind of quote-unquote official thing saying it's Tete-Roa. This says Tete-Roa. Either way, when you say it fast, it's Tete-Roa, because I'm not going to say Tete-Roa. Even if you listen to him say his name, it's all kind of just like jarbled together. So it's just Tete-Roa. If you want to say it slow and enunciate it, then it's either Tete-Roa or Tete-Roa, I don't know. But this says Tete-Roa. We've established this one a while ago, but just we'll keep it in stone, especially since I keep forgetting how to say stuff. Between Michael Williams or Mikel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia, it is Mikel. Wide receiver out of Ohio State, kind of had this one down a while ago, but just so we're clear, Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka. The one that I got wrong, it's very close, so it's subtle, and you probably don't even really notice it. And this one, I think, did come from the Texas website, because I was like, oh, I guess that's what it is. Jahdae Barron, which I've been saying Jahdae Barron for a very long time. Apparently, it's like the French Jacques Cousteau. It's Jahdae Barron, not Jahdae Barron. Very similar, subtle, but it's in there somewhere apparently. The one that is incredibly important that I've been wondering about for a very long time and never would have gotten it right. I've been calling him Siobhan Revel Jr. for a long time. Revel is right. His first name, despite being spelled Shavon, which looks very much like Siobhan. In fact, that was not... I would have thought maybe Siobhan, but that would be if there's an E, but it's like, it's got to be Siobhan, right? No, it's Savone. 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 How? I have no idea, but Savone Revel Jr. Safety, Nick Emanwari. I think that's pretty much how it seems, but every time I say that, I feel like I'm saying it wrong just because it's like kind of long and a lot of letters and whatnot. But Emanwari is correct. Another one that I decided to do, even though it seems straightforward, I find out I was saying it wrong just because I'm missing a letter. Arianti Ursi. I went and found out how to spell it phonetically, and I found out I was missing a letter. Offensive tackle out of Minnesota is Ariante Ursary. There's an R in there, and it's Ariante, not Arianti. Ariante Ursary, offensive tackle, Minnesota. Defensive tackle out of Ohio State is Tyleek Williams. Seems very straightforward, but again, once in a while you get some goofy thing in there, so I just checked it to be sure. Azaria Thomas, I've been saying wrong. I thought that seemed pretty straightforward. Cornerback out of Florida State. It's Azaria. Azaria Thomas, not Azaria. Azaria. A lot of Frenchness in a lot of these names. The interior offensive lineman out of Arizona, Jonah Savanea, apparently is pronounced, I'm going to try this because it doesn't make sense in my brain, but we'll do it slowly. Savainia. Savainia. Jonah Savainia. Pass rusher out of Ole Miss, Princely Umunmillan, as I've been calling him, is Ooman Me Yellin, which is kind of funny, like ooh man me yellin', you know what I mean? Me be yellin'. Ooh man me yellin'. Princely, ooh man me yellin'. Donovan Iziruaku, edge rusher out of Boston College. That's one where there's a lot of letters that you just don't say. It's Ezeraku. So get rid of the I in the first U. Ezeraku. JT Tuimalau is correct. That one's been correct. Alec Iomanner. Put that one in stone. Not Alec Iomanner. Not Alec Iomanner. Alec Iomanner. Marcus Mbow. Got that one right. MBOW is Mbow. I checked on Savion Williams just because I didn't know if it was Savion or Savion. Sometimes you just overthink this stuff. It is Savion. Jack Besh, as I said, is Besh. In fact, I had the robot look that up for me, and it said Beck. And I'm like, yeah, I know that that's what you think it is. Because it took me to some, like, how you pronounce Besh, or B-E-C-H. And I'm like, I know how to pronounce it normally, but I'm asking specifically about this guy. And it is Jack Besh. Ashton Galotti is actually gelati. It's kind of like gelato, but if you want to say it weird, like, give me some of that gelati. Smail Munden, I am pleased to inform you, Georgia linebacker, is actually pronounced Smile. Smile. I don't know why it's written Smail, because that absolutely is Smail, but it's pronounced Smile. Smile Munden. Isaiah Trapillo is Isaiah Trapillo. There, you do pronounce the L, apparently. Caden Prather is Caden Prather. Aeneas Peebles is correct. Then the edge rusher out of UCLA, Oluwafemi Oladeo. It's funny because this list that I have is from a long time ago, the top 200, quote unquote, from a couple months ago. You can really see how much movement there's been. He was 131, he's up to 85. Dude is flying up the boards here. But it is pronounced Oluwafemi Oladejo. Apparently you pronounce the J. I don't know. Oluwafemi Oladejo. And then one of my favorite ones, because I did not know how to say it, and it sounded like I was I hated saying it every time. JJ Pegues? It's Piggies. It's just Piggies. It's like Piggies, but you put the emphasis on the other side. Piggies. Here, Piggy. Phil Maffa is Phil Maffa. Again, just checking. The kicker out of Miami, who apparently was 158, he's dropped to 304, so you probably don't need to know this. Andres Borregales. Edge rusher out of North Carolina, Kaimon Rucker, is actually pronounced Kaimon. Kaimon. Just Kaimon Rucker, not Kaimon. Fidel Diggs is, or Fidel or whatever. It's, Fidel. Fidel Diggs, not Fadil or Fadil or anything like that. Running back out of Rutgers, Kyle Manangai is Kyle Manangai. Otherwise, yeah, pretty straightforward. And that's all I got. Again, there might be a couple. I should just peek through the actual top 200, see if there's a couple that snuck in that have. So here's a guy at 175, Alabama edge rusher, Q Robinson. It's spelled Q-U-E, so it kind of makes sense. His name is Quandarius, but is more commonly known as Q. I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions or whatever about a name, certainly after the 200s or whatever, I'm sure there's a bunch of them. I mean, the consensus big board goes out to 689. So lots and lots and lots of names. All right, let's take our first break. We'll come back, and I got an idea. We'll see how that all pans out. We'll be right back. So going through that, obviously, like I said, I found that there were some discrepancies because this was my top, I don't even know what, top 150, 200, whatever, list. There's some weird anomalies in there, but the point is, what I decided to do was go back and first of all find out when I did this. So I went and looked at the old rankings, and I found out what date I was using, and it was February 16th. That's where they all kind of line up as far as, okay, this is where they all had these rankings. So I took the new rankings, and I found the new people, and I found basically how much people have gone up and down since that point. So basically, over the last 2 months, how much movement has there been, positive or negative? So, first of all, the guys that have not moved at all. Obviously, the higher up, the more this is normal, but surprisingly, all of the top 5 have stayed exactly the same top 5. Not to say they haven't moved at some point and came back, but over the last 2 months, Cam Ward, number 1, Abdul Carter, number 2, Travis Hunter, number 3, Shedeur Sanders, number 4, Mason Graham, number 5. 2 months it's been that way. The 3 others, I'm already getting hit with my, can you remember how to say their names? Azarie Thomas has stayed at 40. JT Tuimalau has stayed at 49. And Miles Frazier, interior offensive lineman out of LSU, has stayed at 143. Everybody else has at least moved a little bit. The later ones are probably more of a, again, coincidence. Either it's moving up and down and just happened to land in the same spot or whatever the case may be. Obviously, several are very barely moved. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle, has gone from 7 to 6. Tetaroa, who, again, as far as kind of quote-unquote sliding, he's gone from 6 to 7. As far, that is Will Campbell. Tetaroa McMillan isn't plummeting, but he's gone from number 7 overall to number 10 overall. I'm skipping a couple because these are much later on, and, like Nick Nash dropped 4 spots. Like, okay. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Alabama, not a huge drop, but from 41 to 45. Michael Williams from 11 down to 15. Calvin Banks has dropped from 10 to 14. Will Johnson, the cornerback, another one that's kind of, I think it's mostly injury stuff, but he's sort of sliding. I don't know if we talk about him enough as a possible Packers option. We talk about Tetaroa McMillan a ton, but this is one of the top corners in the class, presumably, at least according to this, that has some concerns and has been sliding as a result, and who knows. But all of those guys have dropped 4, the ones that I just recently mentioned. Tyleik Williams has dropped 5 spots from 39 to 44. Walter Nolan, Mississippi, from 24 to 29. TJ Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, is dropped from 59 to 65, which does put him from the second round into the third round. Alec Iomanner, did I still do that wrong? Probably. 52 to 58. Ariante Ursary, something like that, has dropped from 37 to 43. Josh Connerly, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, pretty consistently talked about as a late first-round pick. He's dropped from 29 to 36. Like a lot of these guys have started to fall into the second. Tyler Booker, interior offensive lineman out of Alabama, who's dropped from 20 to 27. Surprising, considering how many teams were talked about as being big fans of Tyler Booker in like the top 20. So that must not be catching a ton of steam if he's getting pushed out of the first round here. Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia, has dropped from 13 to 21, so he dropped 8 spots. Kyle Kennard, more of a third-round guy, but a semi-well-known name, so he's dropped from 79 to 88. Trey Harris from 48 to 57. Savone Revel from 30 to 39. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, that was getting a ton of, he's going to be one of the top tackles, taking all that stuff. He's dropped from 17 to 26. So he was mid-first to, he's fallen out of the first round here. As far as guys that have dropped 10 or more, again, sticking with some of the more high-profile, Princely Umanmielen from 45 to 55. Emeka Egbuka, 23 to 33. James Pierce, 15 to 25. Nick Scorton from 27 to 38. Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, the speedster, has dropped from 53 to 69. That kind of surprises me a little bit. I thought he was kind of picking up some steam, but apparently it's going very much the opposite direction. So that's a 16 position drop. Wyatt Millum, offensive tackle out of West Virginia, from 54 to 71. Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher out of Ohio State, dropped from 35 to 52, so early second to late second. Luther Burden, massive drop from 16 to 34, so he went from mid-first. I know there was talk at one point about him being maybe the first wide receiver taken, all this stuff. Now he's out of the first round officially. It's an 18-spot drop. Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame, from 28 to 47. Harold Fannin Jr. dropped 20 spots from 60 to 80. Jonah Savianea, I'm never going to remember that. Interior offensive lineman, from 43 to 63. Tez Johnson dropped from 85 out of the top 100 to 108. Denzel Burke, cornerback, 88 to 112. Barrett Carter, linebacker, from 82 to 106. I remember when Barrett Carter was a first-round pick. Cameron Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas, dropped 29 spots from 44 to 73. Quinn Ewers out of Texas, from 61 to 92. Deion Walker, defensive lineman out of Kentucky, dropped from 56 to 89. That's 33 spots. That's a whole round. And then the biggest guys that dropped, none of these are real high up, but we'll go through all of them starting at 36. In other words, a 36-spot drop. Sebastian Castro dropped 36 from 124 to 160. Noel Williams, cornerback out of Cal, 112 to 148. David Walker, edge rusher, Central Arkansas, dropped from 108 to 146. Ty Hamilton dropped from 156 to 195, defensive tackle. Malachi Moore, safety out of Alabama, from 148 to 183. Garrett Dillinger, guard out of LSU, 155 to 197. Zy Alexander dropped 42 spots from 96 to 138. There's one I should look up. Ajanji Cornelius, offensive tackle out of Oregon, 126 to 169. Jay Higgins, linebacker, Iowa, 122 to 166. Ty Felton, pretty popular wide receiver prospect, from 98 to 142, dropped very far out of the top 100. Riley Leonard, quarterback, 144 to 198. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon, 83 to 136. Tommy Hill, cornerback out of Nebraska, 123 to 177, 54-spot drop. And then the top three are Jordan Hancock, quarterback out of Ohio State, dropped 60 spots from 138 to 198. Antoine Powell Ryland, edge rusher out of Virginia Tech, dropped 61 spots from 129 to 190. And cornerback Mello Dotson out of Kansas, 134 to 200. So those are the negative ones. On the positive side, who got better? Some of the guys that barely moved, again, pretty high up on, well, actually nobody's really high up on the list here, but Shamar Turner moved up a couple spots. Andrew Makuba moved up a couple spots. Nothing real big there. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan, moved up 3 spots from 25 to 22. Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, 22 to 19. Mike Green moved from 21 to 18. The edge rusher, Jalen Walker, the edge rusher, moved up 3 spots from 14 to 11. Tyler Warren, the tight end, moved up from 12 to 9. Ashton Genty moved from 9 to 6. Those guys all moved up 3 spots. Landon Jackson, the edge rusher out of Arkansas, moved up 5 spots from 51 to 46. Shamar Stewart, obviously that combine played a big part in it. He moved up 5 spots from 18 to 13. Alfred Collins, a little bit further down the list, but 68 to 62. Defensive tackle out of Texas. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa, 65 to 59. So those guys putting themselves in the second round. Derek Harmon actually surprisingly moved up. I thought he was moving down, but from 34 to 28, I guess he did start like in the second. I feel like he moved up higher and then is going back down because I could swear he was up closer to where we were. Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame, moved up 8 spots from 58 to 50. Jackson Dart, quarterback, 38 to 30. Trey Amos is a big mover. A lot of Packer fans now looking at him as a possible first-round pick for the Packers. Cornerback out of Mississippi, moved up 9 spots from 50 to 41. Nick Emanwari moved up 10 spots from 33 to 23. Jahdae Barron moved up 10 spots from 26 to 16. Darian Porter, cornerback out of Iowa State, has bumped himself into the second round, moving up 11 spots from 71 to 60. Quinshon Judkins, the running back out of Ohio State, moved from 62 to 51. Gray Zabel from 42 to 31. Pretty, not comfortably, but certainly moving himself inside of the first round. Matthew Golden, who was at 31, is now at 20. Armand Membo, obviously, has made a big jump up. Talking about him possibly going at 4. Moved up 11 spots from 19 to 8. You've got, skip those. Carson Schwessinger, linebacker out of UCLA, moved up 14 spots from 70 to 56. Donovan Ezeraku, I think it's Ezeraku, has moved up from 46 to 32. That's pretty big. It's 14 spots, but from mid-second straight into the first round. Mentioned Jared Wilson here, the interior offensive lineman out of Georgia, moved 15 spots from 102 to 87. Jihad Campbell, who's been getting a lot of love for at least a couple teams, but he's moved up 15 spots from 32 to 17. Josh Farmer moved inside the top 100. Defensive tackle out of Florida State, 104 to 86. Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle out of Toledo, from 66 to 48. So third round pick to mid-second. Cam Scatabo has been getting a lot of love for his running style and whatnot out of Arizona State, 91 to 72. Ozzie Trapilo, offensive tackle, Boston College, 115 to 95. Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback out of Kentucky, from 55 to 35, knocking on the door. Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State, from 75 to 54. It's a 21-spot jump. Travion Henderson from 63 to 42. Mason Taylor moved from 76 to 53. Omarion Hampton from 47 to 24. That dude is flying up. That's 23 spots. Charles Grant moved into the top 100 from 120 to 94. Interior offensive lineman out of William and Mary. Jack Besh has just put himself inside the second round from 90 to 64. That's 26 spots. Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State, from 128 to 97. Oluwafemi Oladejo, edge rusher out of UCLA, 131 to 85. And these are pretty massive jumps already. That's a 46 it's 46 spots, which is about as one of the biggest that you would find, and we still got a bunch here, so I'm going to do the rest of these. Most of these are not top 100, but it's starting at 49 positions moved here. Jonas Sanker, safety out of Virginia, 183 to 134. Jalen Conyers, tight end out of Texas Tech, 220 to 171. Cam Jackson, defensive tackle out of Florida, went from 200 to 150. Jackson Hawes, tight end out of Georgia Tech, 215 to 165. Nick Martin, linebacker, 228 to 173. Elijah Roberts, defensive tackle, MSU, 195 to 139. DJ Giddens, 173 to 111. He's a running back out of Kansas State. CJ West, a lot of defensive tackles out of Indiana, 164 to 102. Jamari Caldwell, defensive tackle out of Oregon, 197 to 132. Caleb Rogers, interior offensive lineman, Texas Tech, 200 to 133. Tyler Shaw is the only one that got inside the top 100. He moved 68 spots from 166 to 98. Isaac Tesla moved 73 spots. He's a wide receiver out of Arkansas. 73 spots from 240 to 167. Caleb Ransaw, safety out of Tulane, 254 to 164. Bayshul Tootin, running back out of Virginia Tech. I should look up his name, but I'm worried I won't be able to call him Tootin anymore. He moved from 111 to 117. That's a 94-spot jump. Jarquez Hunter, running back Auburn, 289 to 180. That's 109 places. Jaden Blue, running back out of Texas, 261 to 154. That's 110 spots. Vernon Broughton, defensive tackle out of Texas, 229 to 119. Baron Sorrell, edge rusher out of Texas, 255 to 131. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, edge rusher out of Georgia, 137 places from 328 to 191. Very well-known receiver, Dante Thornton. Speed is off the charts. He's moved up 142 places from 297 to 155. The final three, Za Frazier, cornerback out of UTSA, went 144 spots from 268 to 124. Dean Clark, safety out of Fresno State, moved up 156 spots from 343 to 187. And then Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State, has moved up 183 spots from 290 to 107. So just to be clear, Kyle Williams, and that's what I want to do in the next segment, is kind of look into a couple of these guys that have jumped up that we're probably not as familiar with, to get familiar with them. Kyle Williams is a receiver that not too long ago was not in the top, almost in the top 300, that is now like a third-round pick. So undrafted to third round. And he's still very slowly climbing. I mean, he was at, his big jump came after February 24th to the 28th, when he jumped from 302 to 211, but he's just been climbing. Every single update, he's been going up little by little by little. At this rate, by the draft, he could be inside the top 100. You could argue he's a potential second-round pick. Wouldn't be super shocking, for the Packers or somebody to take it. Jaden Reed. I don't know if Jaden Reed was ranked this high when we took him in the second round. Let me look it up. Oh yeah, he was. He got up to 88. Again, I didn't have him in my top 100, but I probably made that a long time ago. That's why it's good to update these things as you get closer to the draft. He was at, let's see, by about February he was at 177. Well, 177 January 21st. He cracked the top 100 March 6th at 96. Gotta watch the risers, man. Especially, I shouldn't even say especially, because it seems like it's other positions as well, but we know that this has happened in the first round as well, where it's sort of a, what? And it's like, well, yeah, didn't you hear? Everybody was talking, watch out for this guy, he's rising, all that stuff. Quay Walker was one of those. He was not considered a first-round pick, but if you listen in that last month, half a month, whatever, there's a lot of talk about, I don't know, he could be the first linebacker that goes. There's a lot of interest, all this stuff. Anyways, let's take a break. We'll come back and look at some of these fast risers. All right, so let's start with the top dog here, the biggest mover, Kyle Williams out of Washington State. I don't think I have his age here, but he has been in college for 5 years, 3 at UNLV, 2 at Washington State. His grades have been very consistent. Stats aren't massively impressive, but low 70s pretty much every year. His first year at Washington State was high 60s, whatever, no big deal. But then he kind of broke out his final year at Washington State, 80 overall, 82 receiving grade, 1,200 yards, 17 yards per reception, and 14 touchdowns. Pretty much like doubled almost all of his stats compared to, any other given season. And it wasn't because of an increase in production. I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but it was actually less than his first year at Washington State. Biggest issue is that he's kind of seen as an undersized guy. A lot of people tend to think he's going to be moved to the slot. If that's the case, I'd more or less rule him out. Doesn't mean you have to, but it's a thing. The general consensus is that he's pretty decent speed, pretty good route runner, pretty good hands, all that stuff. He's got a 6.7% drop rate, which is solid. 60-some-odd% contested catch rate, but he can't really handle contact quite as much. What was his official listing here? 6 foot 186, 4.4 speed. So again, if he gets pushed into the slot, probably not going to be a Packer unless, you think we just want another one or we're done with Reed, which is not a thing. But obviously that's not entirely consistent across the board. There are other comps. One of the more ridiculous ones was Antonio Brown. I think that more had to do with the fact that they're pretty similar or almost identical in just about every category as far as height, weight, speed, all that kind of stuff. But you probably wouldn't pigeonhole a guy like that as just a slot. So, next fastest riser at a position that is somewhat interesting is Zoff Frazier, cornerback out of UTSA. Zoff Frazier, 6'3", 189. We'll call him 190 because it feels a little bit more doable, Spent just 3 years at UTSA, really didn't play very much his first two, and then just completely broke out year 3. Played just 23 snaps as a rookie with a 58 grade. Run defense, by the way, and tackling have always been phenomenal, so it's really just a coverage thing. Second year, just 75 snaps, so, tripled it, but still not very much. 65 grade, 70 run defense, 80 tackling, 63 coverage. And then they finally gave him the starting job, 2024, 86 overall defensive grade, 82 run defense, 81 tackling, 94 pass rush, which only was 4 attempts, but he got 2 pressures out of that, and an 83 coverage grade. With that, he had a missed tackle rate of just 6.5% with 24 tackles, 6 stops, 1 forced fumble. He was targeted 39 times, 18 of those were caught for 246 yards. He gave up 1 touchdown, had 6 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 35.8 passer rating when targeted. So he played 1 year and got first team all AAC, second most interceptions in the NCAA, awarded a single-digit jersey at UTSA, which is given to team leaders voted on by their peers. So this would lean a little bit more toward, I'm a little interested. The 190 thing, maybe a little bit iffy, but the fact that he is a physical tackling guy that also might be a good corner and is flying up the boards. And apparently, I'm actually surprised to figure this out. I assumed it was the opposite. He's turning 25, so that actually kind of hurts quite a bit. So I don't know. He just was not playing at all, or what the situation was. But that's a pretty big knock. But maybe and stuff. Then we got Dante Thornton. We all know about Dante Thornton, speed demon, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Again, he went from about 300 to 155. But my whole thought on him is he is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's not like a legit comp kind of thing as far as what I've seen, but we're talking let's call it mid-round pick who is 6'5", 205 pounds, and runs a 4.3 flat. Now, that's faster than MVS, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not saying he's not better, but again, there are really big, really fast guys that are first-round picks, and there are really big, really fast guys that are there's always those like 5th, 6th, 7th round guys that fit that mold, and we always get excited about them for obvious reasons. But they're 5th, 6th, 7th round prospects for a reason. On the other hand, we had very briefly, but at least several people had talked about, the possibility of bringing a guy in like MVS. I think if all things maybe don't go exactly perfect, let's say we do get a wide receiver, but he's not necessarily a speed guy. He's sort of that X number 1, blah, blah, blah. we may still be in need of this type of player. Dante Thornton might be perfect because, again, Christian Watson is the guy, but he's hurt. And we need a guy to do Matt LaFleur's offense, et cetera, et cetera. Let's roll the dice on a guy like Dante Thornton. Turning 23 in November, so not young, not old. Hilariously, I pulled up something on him. His comp, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, which, I mean, it makes sense. But again, I'm fine with that. Next on the list, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, edge rusher out of Georgia. Spent 4 years there. Really not fantastic PFF grades. His pass rush grades in particular have not been fantastic. Really didn't start until his final year. Played 20 snaps as a rookie, then 209, then 142. His final year, 536. By the way, he's a really big guy, so he's kind of outside-inside. But 69.8 overall grade. This was by far his best year, not including his 20-snap rookie year. 71 run defense, 35 tackling, 60 pass rush, and then coverage, who cares? 19 pressures on 300 attempts is not good, and 3 sacks. So none of this is fantastic. But yeah, 6'5", 280. He is listed here as a defensive tackle, so I don't know exactly where people are projecting him. Nothing worse than a tweener, man. I'm just saying. But nonetheless, for whatever reason, rising. Keep an eye out. Next biggest riser was Baron Sorrell, another edge rusher, this time out of Texas. Moved up 124 spots up to 131. Spent 4 years at Texas. Started his last 3, so finally somebody with a little bit of experience. Grades are not the worst, not the best. 64, 73, 72. Run defense, 68, 71, 73. Pass rush, 58, 69, 75. So at least that was the biggest growth area. His pressure rates, 2022, it was 33 on 390, so sub 10%. And then 2023 was 39 on 360, so, I don't know, 11%-ish, but only 3 sacks. And then this year, 49 pressures on 362 attempts and 9 sacks. So he really exploded as a pass rusher. He is a down defensive end at 6'3", 260, so should be a pretty good fit there. This is one of the first ones outside of maybe Zav Frazier I'm looking at going, this is pretty good here. Especially if we're talking, again, currently 131, so like 4th-ish round, and he's just 22 years old, although he will turn 23 this year. He was All-State and All-Academic All-State honors in high school, so he's got the intelligence, which is great. Listed here as a high-floor, limited-ceiling player due to athletic constraints, which, you know, considering what Packer fans are kind of asking for, he's seen as sort of a plug-and-play. You know, maybe he won't be the greatest, but he should be able to start and contribute right away and shouldn't be a terrible player. Obviously, you never know these things, but I'm not super hating it. Another guy out of Texas, Vernon Broughton, defensive tackle, moved up 110 spots from 229 to 119. He's 6'4", 305 pounds, ran a 4.9 40. He's been at Texas for 5 years. Looks like he kind of semi-started his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then started his 5th. Played all, 16 games? 15 games for Texas, including the 3 bowl championship, whatever they're called in college, I guess. Certainly had a breakout year his final year. His grades were 50, 60, 50, 60, 80. So 86 overall, 79 run defense, 52 tackling, 86 pass rush. 32 pressures on 348 attempts and 4 sacks is not super wonderful, but they loved his pass rush. So, you know, who knows? Maybe a lot of double teams or something. I don't know. But also an 80 run defense. It was a 70 the year before, so it's not like he was terrible at that. He's got some family stuff going on. Mom was a college basketball player. Dad was a lineman in arena football. Obviously, he's going to be up in age a little bit. Could certainly be an option. And then we'll do one final one here because we got a bunch of positions that maybe aren't super interesting. Running back, safety, quarterback, whatever. But moving up 73 spots, wide receiver out of Arkansas, Isaac Tesla. Should look that one up too. It's spelled really weird, but whatever. But Isaac Tesla is kind of seems like a prototypical Arkansas wide receiver in that he's massive. He's 6'4", 214 pounds. But even with that mass, he ran a 4.43, which is pretty solid. I'm only seeing 2 years at Arkansas, though, and is listed as a slot, which is not super uncommon, I suppose. Looks like the reason behind that is he spent 3 years at Hillsdale College, which is a Division II school, and then he transferred to Arkansas in 2023 as a 3-star transfer. He chose Arkansas over Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Wisconsin, choosing the Razorbacks. But year 1, 58 grade. Year 2 went up to a 70, but his play dropped his amount of targets dropped in half, and he doesn't look like he missed any time. He just wasn't targeted very much. He had two different games. Let's see. 2 games with no targets. 1, 2, 3, 4 more with just 1 target. So he just wasn't utilized a ton. But either way, 70 grade, 532 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was on the SEC academic honor roll while continuing to excel football or whatever. The other real big positive here is he has 0 drops over that time. So he was targeted 100 times over those 2 years and didn't drop a pass in 2 years. So I'm guessing a lot of this is projection, speculative. Production isn't there, but he's a big body slot receiver type of guy. Despite the fact that he played slot in college, I think he'll probably be a slot, but a big slot. One comp here from NFL Draft Buzz is poor man's Mike Evans. It says the comparisons that keep flashing on tape is a poor man's Mike Evans, not as fluid or polished, but with similar physical traits and basketball-influenced ball skills. But he certainly is, I mean, he was a unranked prospect, unranked high school recruit to Division II standout at Hillsdale to SEC transfer at Arkansas. So he might take a little bit of time, but could be an interesting, fun little prospect. All right, I'm going to leave you all with that. I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.